Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This video is the 7th in a series that examines the laundry list, otherwise known as the 14 traits of an adult child. The topic is trait 7, which reads, "We get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others." Okay, let's break this down. To start with, I think you have to be careful with any trait that deals with feelings because ACAs don't always excel in the feelings department. This is not a judgment or simply a personal opinion. To better understand this, we must look at the other traits. Trait 9 states that we confuse love and pity. Think about that. In my mind, love and pity seem to be two very different feelings, yet according to trait 9, we can mix them up, or rather, interpret one as the other. So, can I trust myself to not confuse guilt with another feeling? Or is confusion strictly limited to love and pity? Trait 9, you see, introduces us to the rescuer corner of the drama triangle, which is why it points out the confusion between love and pity. I don't think it's meant to be exclusive. Trait 10 states we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and have lost the ability to feel or express our feelings. Perhaps this could be slightly modified as follows. We have lost the ability to properly feel or express our feelings. One of the factors, I believe, is that we usually don't feel just a single feeling when we're triggered. A situation that would activate trait 7 could easily bring up feelings of fear, shame, sadness, or frustration, to name just a few. In which case, it may be hard to discern guilt within this mixture of feelings. As such, I've come up with an alternate version of trait 7, which goes like this. We'll call this 7A. We get guilt or uncomfortable feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. In a given situation, if you're struggling to identify with the standard version, see if you identify with this alternate version. The point is not to let the feeling become an obstacle. What trait 7 wants us to see is that we've been conditioned to put other people's needs before our own. At least that's my interpretation of it, which begs the question, do we even know what our needs are? Like feelings, we also have multiple needs, which can be confusing for an ACA. But perhaps the most powerful need, at least on an unconscious level, is to not be abandoned. And this fear of abandonment is part of the foundation of trait 7. Another part of the foundation is feeling that we're unworthy, and therefore our needs are unworthy. This makes it easy to relegate them, especially if we stand to gain approval in the process. This is a damn good trade-off for someone stuck in survival mode. As such, I believe that it's more common for adult children to not stand up for themselves in order to prevent the feelings of guilt, shame, and fear that will immediately follow. This only needs to happen a few times before one learns to avoid it altogether by giving in to the other person. In my case, I can get guilt feelings for simply contemplating standing up for myself. This acts as a warning of what's to come should I actually do so. There are probably adult children who have never stood up for themselves. The preemptive guilt won't allow it. I see this as a variation of the standard trait, and it goes like this. We'll call this 7B. We get guilt feelings for imagining or contemplating standing up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. Of course, one can stand up for themselves despite the guilt feelings, and I think this is the first stage of recovery, to push through the uncomfortable feelings, putting your own needs first. But prior to recovery, 9 out of 10 times I would give in. It wasn't worth it. The possible victory of standing up for myself would be outweighed by the guilt that I knew I would have to carry around for days. On a deep unconscious level, we all seek to avoid pain. Giving in equates to avoiding pain. And as damaging and soul-crushing as this sounds, there is something even worse. When we give in altogether and stop imagining standing up for ourselves, because imagining that our needs matter provokes the critical inner parent, and it just isn't worth it. I see this as the most severe form of the trait, and it goes like this. We'll call this 7C. We avoid imagining standing up for ourselves and automatically give in to others. I know I've been there for long periods of time, but it's the hardest variation of the trait to deconstruct because it all happens unconsciously and utilizes considerable denial. It's like a drunk trying to analyze a blackout. So if you can feel the guilt feelings, consider yourself lucky, because that awareness allows you to process what's happening, which is the first step to becoming an actor instead of a reactor. And the last thing I have to say about trait 7 is the fact that it doesn't operate by itself. The traits seem to run as a pack, as it were. One by one, they exert their pressure until you bend to the demands of your conditioning. For example, trait 1 talks about fear of authority figures. If the other person referred to in trait 7 is perceived as an authority figure, it will amplify the guilt. Trait 2 says that we became approval seekers. If I'm seeking the other person's approval, it will also amplify the guilt. Trait 3 is fear of angry people and personal criticism. This can also dial up the uncomfortable feelings should I stand up for myself. This may seem like it's hopeless, but it's not. There is a solution. And the solution for trait 7 is the solution to all the traits, and that is practice self-love and trust in a loving higher power of your understanding. How do you do that? By working the program. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.